So today we are going to learn about how we can increase our productivity on the job, but with some fun tools that are backed by a little bit of science and some research. So hold on to your hat because here we go. First things first is we want to talk about why are we even here today? And I'm very excited to teach you a few things about music and movement. So let's take a look at our course objectives. First thing is we are going to look at and explore how certain types of music can enhance your productivity. Second, we are going to learn and examine how movement can enhance your mood. And then lastly, we're going to look at how the combination of movement and listening to music during your workday can help you to be happier, healthier, and more productive. So we all have a favorite song, right? I know I have favorites that stick around for years and then some that kind of come and go. So up here on the screen, I just put together a random list of kind of popular songs across genres, and you might see some of your favorites on that list. What if I told you that the right type of music with the right task at the right time can be a powerful productivity booster? I'm sure some of you are a little bit familiar with this concept. And in the context of work, it has been found that background music can greatly improve our performance on cognitive tasks. We will revisit these concepts in more detail in a few moments. But first, let me tell you a little bit about one of my favorite TV shows. Some of you guys might have heard of this. It was on a few years back, kind of a updated X-Files, if you will. So this show called Fringe, this fellow right here, Walter's on the Fringe team, and he's kind of like a mad scientist. He can send people to the future. He can make you disappear. He can basically anything that you would think would be impossible, Walter can make it happen. But he's a good guy, all right? This fella, Captain Windmark, he's a bad guy. He comes from another dimension. He's not quite human. And he wants to, in a particular episode that comes up, he's trying to get these secret codes out of Walter's head. And there are super secret codes that can like basically destroy the earth because that's always what the bad guys want to do, right? So he kidnaps Walter and he's like he thinks this is gonna be cake, the humans, they're nothing. I can get these secret codes out of his head. Well, Walter, he thinks he's like, okay, how can I protect the secret codes? Well, he knows that the aliens from another planet, they don't know what music is. To them, all music is vibrations and noise, and they can't hear music the way that humans can hear music. So Walter, he gets kidnapped and he's sitting there and he decides that he's just going to think of every opera and every piece of beautiful music and Mozart and Beethoven and harps and violins and symphonies and all the most beautiful music that he's ever heard in his life. And Captain Windmark, he's trying to get these codes and he hears all this noise in Walter's head and these vibrations and this noise and noise and noise, and he can't get to it. He can't get to it and he doesn't get the secret codes. So in this case, music saves lives. And while this might be science fiction, we know that music makes us feel good. So, point being here, that although, we know that music makes us feel good, there are studies that are published across the board, and in this case, in the Journal of Surgery, that found that listening to Mozart and Bach can boost doctors' performance up to 11%. Listening to gentle music reduces stress levels, and it helps surgeons focus more while also reducing stress in the patient. This is known as the Mozart effect. While you and I may not be performing brain surgery every day or keeping secret codes in our heads, there is something to be said for this phenomenon and where it leads. With that said, we can see again that it's obvious that music has an effect on our mood. So if it can make you more relaxed, then it stands to reason that it can produce other feelings as well. But before we delve too deep into those waters, let's think a little bit about personality. We are not robots. We are not Captain Windmark. We are beautiful, unique people, and this is what makes us human. And we've all probably heard of introverts. Those are those folks that get labeled as the quiet ones, and extroverts, those people that get labeled as, oh, life of the party, right? Well, not everybody falls under these labels. And again, keep in mind, these are generalities. And some people kind of have even crossover. Like I like to think of myself as a introverted extrovert. That's how I like to think of myself. So we can all probably identify with some of the characteristics that are on these lists and under these headings. But even more so when I show you in a few moments the musical types that best suit each of introverts and extroverts. Think about our musical characteristics. Again, these are generalities, but introverts tend to find background noise, including music, to kind of be a little bit of a distraction. And it's also easier for them to have longer periods of silence there. Also, extroverts, they tend to be understimulated. They need stimulation. So performance on the job with tasks, it's going to increase with background music or some sort of minor distraction taking place. Additionally, we also want to just kind of keep in mind that people are going to perform best when they pick music that matches their personality. So if you think you might be both, then you're probably going to kind of levitate towards kind of both types of music. If you're somebody that is extroverted, and we'll talk about this in more detail in a few moments, there's a particular style of music that's going to be more to your liking as opposed to someone who is introverted and likes things that are a little bit more quiet. And a study from Harvard Business Review, which is the source material for this portion of the presentation, they also make two other suggestions for when you're looking to get inspired on the job. They say that first, you might want to just pick music that's going to naturally enhance the emotional state that you're feeling at that moment. Also, you want to simply want to augment your emotional state by choosing music that represents how you want to feel. It's important to note that sometimes your work can benefit if you depart from your current mood state. Perhaps you dealt with a customer that was unpleasant. Maybe you're working on something that was incredibly frustrating and difficult. So in situations like that, you want to maybe pick something that's upbeat and is going to make you feel better, and that can sometimes help you reset. So remember earlier, I told you that the right type of music with the right task can boost your productivity. Well, let's look at that in a little bit more detail. So again, we already know that music has an effect on our mood and our feelings. So the question is, how can that help us during our workday? Well, in order to increase our productivity and give us the right oomph is largely dependent on the complexity of the task you are performing, as well as the complexity of the music that you choose. We have something called low complexity songs, all right? When it comes to low complexity songs, these go with creative tasks like planning, reasoning, and problem solving. Some examples of low complexity songs would be like the Beatles' Let It Be, or James Taylor's Carolina on My Mind. And if you think about those songs, they're pretty simple. They're simple in their musical construction. There's nothing terribly complicated about the instrumentation or the composition. And even the lyrics are fairly simple and easy to follow. On the other side of that, though, is high complexity songs. Those are the songs that have fast tempo and variation within their musical makeup. And it's best to use this music when you're doing tasks that are simple and routine and emphasize quantity and speed. Examples of high complexity songs would be Bonnie Tyler's Holding Out for a Hero, or the Rolling Stones' Paint It Black. Again, if you take a minute to think about what those songs sound like, this music is more complicated. It's got a lot more going on with the composition and the sound and the effects that it brings. So now that I've got you thinking about these different tasks and their complexity, consider what you do here within your unit of the agency. All right. We all know that there are some things that are so familiar we could do them with our eyes shut. Then there are other things that require a little bit more focus and attention and thinking. So let's look at this slide and consider your specific job and the tasks that go with it. And we've covered how certain tasks determine the music that we choose. So now let's look at the types of music. Let's get into that a little bit more and how the types of music boost our performance and our productivity. So Kathleen Keller and Dr. Jose Quintana, they concluded in their 2019 study that there were several attributes in music which potentially influence outcomes. And they're listed right there for you to see: lyrics, familiarity, volume, preference. And those last two bullets, moderate tempo to dynamic variation, fast tempo to high dynamic variation, those are both like the low and high complexity. So they came up with this information, researched this, published it. And in addition to this, though, a study from Harvard Business Review also observes that specific types and aspects of music that influence our performance are likely to change over time. But that same study, they cite another study that notes that background music is more beneficial and less distracting when it does not contain lyrics. Reason being, because we think, read, and write with words. So we need to minimize the verbal information that we are exposed to, because then there's like interference. Now, that might seem a little bit redundant because lyrics is on the list, but think of it this way. Have you ever been like trying to write something and somebody's talking to you and then all of a sudden you start writing what they say? Or you're listening, or you have been listening to something and you're trying to think and then you start writing what you hear, right? So it's like it gets kind of crossed in our brains. So the jazz, the classical music, again, sometimes some of that, you can still listen to some high complexity music that's jazz or that doesn't have lyrics, but it's still that high complexity and it can still get you pumped up. So at this point, we've talked about high complexity, low complexity, types of music, but there's one thing left, and that is the time of day that you are choosing to do the task and listen to that particular type of music. All those things work together. So we've all heard of the midday slump, that time around 3 p.m. when you just want to curl into a little ball. You wish somebody would roll out a cot for you, right? And we tend to lose our motivation and our productivity during those afternoon hours. So Laura Jasmine Tolliver, in her article for Good RX Health, she explains that our circadian rhythm is responsible for that afternoon slump. And when this happens, we tend to lose our focus and our energy decreases. Also, research shows that logic and dedication are sharper in the morning hours. There's no evidence, as the slide shows you, to support that it is better to be a night person or a day person. It's simply a preference. Though creative people do tend to be more on during night hours, certain studies suggest. So, with this knowledge, what we have learned thus far about music, between 1 and 4 p.m., this would be a good time to put in those earbuds, go down to the break room, grab your buddies, and listen to some Uptown Funk, or maybe you're more of a like walk this way kind of person, but whatever it might be, this is when you want to try to amp up your energy, to up your productivity, and you will feel your body respond as your energy levels amp up and those tunes get you in the mood to groove. All right, so interestingly enough, research on music and behavior is not a new thing. Back in 1950 and 60, the Muzak Corporation conducted its own extensive research, and they developed what is known as the stimulus program. So the fastest and the most uplifting songs, they were played at 10:30 a.m. and at 3:30 p.m. And during this study, there was not a cutoff time mentioned. But what did happen was increased productivity without distracting employees. So they noted this, and with their findings, other workplaces could order from a selection of recordings, each of which was designed with a specific order and a type of music to, quote, counteract the fatigue cycle in humans. So, whether it's Johnny B. Good or American Woman, some good old rock and roll will definitely have you covered. So, hold on a minute. You said we were going to be learning about movement too, and all we've gotten so far is a music lesson. I got you. Don't worry. I didn't forget. Let's take a minute to review our objectives. So at this point, we've covered objective one, which was to explore how certain types of music can enhance productivity. As we move forward, objective two and three, they're going to kind of get squashed together. So let's remind ourselves what they are. Remember, objective two is to examine how movement enhances your mood. And objective three will pull everything together by looking at how the combination of movement and listening to music during your workday can help you be happier, healthier, and more productive. So next up, in 2015, a university in Budapest, they conducted a study to develop what they called the Dance Motivation Inventory. They put together this inventory and they did research mostly on Latin dances, ballroom salsa, and this included males and females. And they did happen to find a number one motivator. Number one motivation for dance is mood enhancement. So, a little bit more science to throw at you here. In 2016, there was a study done in the Journal for Preventative Medicine, and they note how the social aspects of dance help promote relaxation. So, again, all of this stuff kind of overlaps. And while we may not be able to have a full on dance party here in the office, we can still try to make some of these things work for us a little bit. So, if you're having a rough day, or you're feeling a little bit wound up, getting up, moving around a little bit, that's going to help you feel a little bit better. All right, let's take a look at some of the other things that dancing can do for you. It can improve your balance. It's going to help with your core strength, and it's going to help with good posture, all of which help prevent muscle injuries and back pain. And the benefits, they don't stop there. Look at what else happens. All of the other type, it improves flexibility, and out of all of the other types of dancing, it's the one type of exercise that can improve cognitive decline. Now, for that to work, you would have to kind of be doing a dancing where you have to memorize steps or an order, but nonetheless, it's going to help with cognitive decline. That's a great thing to know. It's going to help you reduce your stress and anxiety, and it's going to improve psychological well-being. Dancing also helps promote weight loss, but again, for that kind of dancing, you might have to be a little bit more strenuous. So you might want to save that one for home because you got to get a little bit of a sweat out for that. Nonetheless, though, just like our fella in the picture here, you can make some of this work for you at the office. Put on those headphones and move around a little. Combining the right type of music with some movement throughout your day can help boost your mood and your productivity. So keep in mind that a lot of what we have discussed today is really a matter of trying things out. What works for one person isn't necessarily going to work for another. So experiment and be patient. Keep an eye on that clock, and when that midday slump starts to hit, reach for those headphones, tighten up those laces, and boogie down a few minutes. You'll awaken your body's dopamine production, and you might even burn a few calories while you're at it. So whether you are crunching numbers, assisting the elderly, or taking calls at a help desk, you matter here at this state agency. There are many roles to be played, and what also matters is your well-being, how you feel about yourself. And we are a huge agency. Huge. So, in order for us to be successful in our many roles, we need you to strive to be your best. So, please remember that you need to take care of you. Music is medicine, and dance is life. Thank you all so much for being here today. Please, please visit our website for more information about microlearning opportunities. Thank you all so much, and have a wonderful afternoon.